Countdown. We are live. What's up? Give me a sec. Let me get this camera situated. I think that's all right. We can see ourselves okay.
I look good.
What's up, man? Welcome to the show. Give it a minute because there's a few people going to jump on and we'll kind of get going here. So oftentimes right at the beginning of the show we'll do a little kind of banter. Remind people, because as you watch the replay of this, we want to make sure you reshare this. And as always, let us know you're watching. Let us know where you're coming from, where you're watching from, what you're doing. We love emojis. Those are always fun. Just say hi, give us a thumbs up, give us a pound, something like that. But most importantly, share this out. Share this out with other groups. Share this out with family and friends and other rooferpreneurs, entrepreneurs, roofing contractors that want to learn anything they want to learn, anything they can learn about when it comes to insurance and insurance supplementing. We're about to go fairly deep in talking about that with our resident guru and our resident supplementing expert, Mr. Kyle Larson. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's where all this gray hair comes from. Trying to figure out how to make this thing.
All the gray comes from fighting with supplement or insurance companies all the time, right?
And some of it's just age, but
awesome.
I think it helps.
Yeah, that's cool. Give me just a sec because I'm going to make sure I can try to keep up with the comments. So we'll see if I can refresh here and do that. Hold on just one sec. I don't know there. I don't know. There it is. There we go. Here we go. That way I can see some comments from you guys. So I'm kind of going live or logging in on both places. What's up, Pendy? How you guys doing? I've got some people on. All right, we're going to go into it. But as always, we want to tell a story.
Okay.
The whole point of this show is to tell the entrepreneurial journey and tell a story of entrepreneurship with a lot of tangible lessons and things that people can learn and take away and implement into their daily lives and as entrepreneurs and as contractors. So we like to tell a good story. So let's right.
Well, I don't know how much you forgot. I'm tending to forget some stuff these days too. So I've been at this a long time. Man, I've been in the roofing industry in one form or another for the past 30 plus years. So yeah I went to. I just wanted, back in the day, I needed a job, and I wanted a job that would have enough money to buy beer. So my friends were roofing, and so I thought, we'd try roofing and see how that went. And I never expected it to be a career, but it's amazing how things, I've raised 4 kids, 3 of them in college, and had a pretty decent life. There's been some ups and downs for sure, but it's been, in retrospect, it's a good industry to get into, and there's lots of people out there that did a lot of different things that had a higher chance of success, or at least it would have seemed like it would. And I look back at my life and it turned out pretty damn well so far. So awesome. I've got lots of it left, I hope.
Hopefully, right? Yeah. So you've kind of gone the whole entire spectrum of roofing, like from literally, here's a hammer, here's some nails, go figure
these
it out.
hands? This is from calluses, from roofing
all the way to owning and building your own roofing company,
yes.
to niching yourself in a place where you just, you've embedded yourself in the supplement world, in the insurance world. So let's tell that story in 3 different perspectives. Like, tell me about your first day in roofing. Like, what was it like being a young guy wanting to get here's roofing. What next, right?
My first day in roofing, I was working for a gentleman here in Colorado. His name's Adams Roofing. He's still in business, and it was a shake roof in Aurora here. And at that time, we didn't know any better. Nobody done shakes, so we were tearing off with claw hammers, and it'd take us days just to tear the roof off, because it was one at a time. Just moved in, we were pretty quick. We were young, and then of course, one of the more established companies at the time came as doing some roofs right across the street, and they had these big porch or pitchforks, and they were rolling up the shingles in the felt.
In the paper,
and we were so embarrassed, because here we are, they're getting it done in a few hours what it was taking us days to do. So that was my first days in roofing, and it just grew from there. So I worked there for several years, and then went to work for a company called Ragsdale Brothers Roofing, and learned a lot. That's where I really learned about roofing, because there was people there Kurt Boyd, Kurt Boyd from the Academy. He started Ragsdale Brothers when I was there. He was when I think he was a manager at that point. But
Awesome.
so
What's up, Kurt? Hopefully you're watching. You probably don't. I know he was on Facebook. Love you, buddy. Maybe you'll watch someday.
I really cut my teeth on roofing there, I would think, and then from there, back then we're almost 30 years back. At that point, worked for several other companies. Ragsdale eventually didn't do so well, so they went out and went for some work for some others, and got approached by some people that approached the guys I was working for to become not just an employee labor, but I could be my own business because it made sense for both. So that was really the start of my entrepreneurship in roofing, because then once they opened that door, they showed that I could, be a subcontractor for these guys. It's just natural, and you kind of grow from that. You begin to see the opportunities that exist there, and the more you learn, then eventually you start getting some of your own jobs, which is what I did. That's how most of the guys, and most of you young guys, that's not how you got into this these days.
No,
but
man,
back then, that was the
ballgame.
only way we got into roofing was you start out as a roofer. That's how everybody, and that's part of the problem, part of some of the problems, in my opinion, that the roofing world, some of the impressions anyway, is because of that. Because we were great at roofing, and some of us were pretty smart, but some of us, a few of us were very good at business, and that was and that's true for me as well.
The ones that have a knack for business tend to emerge, right?
And we weren't smart enough to hire guys that wanted to do that. I mean, back in the day, we should all have been turned to somebody someone again like you that wanted the business end of stuff is what they're really good at, and we weren't smart enough roofers are pretty egotistical, so
no way. Any roofers watching with egos? Nobody. None of us.
Right next to lawyers. There's lawyers and then there's roofers. So there was a lot of that, and it went on so I got into having our own businesses, doing a bunch of new work, lots of re-roofs. Back in my day, again, we thought doing insurance work was just for scabs, more or less, because it was all hail chase, and that's the way we all looked at anybody that was going after hail work. At least there wasn't just a phone call or referral. Anybody's knocking on doors or something like that, we thought for sure they were just the scum of the earth. That's what it was. That's the way it was.
And so
my wife tried to tell me, why did you go out and do that?
Let's date this a little bit. What year was this? Like what era was this?
That's going to be the very early 90s.
Okay.
Late 80s, early 90s was when.
And this was just when kind of the insurance, kind of whole insurance side of this game really started rearing its ugly head.
There was a few companies.
Correct?
There was companies out of Texas that kind of had kind of a handle on it, because they'd come up when the storms hit Colorado, and we'd just be pissed off as hell, because here they'd come in, and of course they would go out and market and get all, me and my partner, we were actually doing the roofs and everything. We were selling the roofs, doing the roofs for the whole 9 yards. And so we'd go into a neighborhood and we'd think, well, there's, we're going to have enough work for the whole year. And all of a sudden, these companies would come.
Yeah, it's 3 months. You're like, oh crap, what happened?
This was my neighborhood. What the hell? So, but even from that, I didn't really learn. And my wife tried to tell me for years that, why don't you go out after this stuff? And I for whatever reason, I thought it was just not. It was below me.
Right.
And then eventually,
Fast forward
several years, and I'd been working for a company out of Washington. I was a manufacturer's warranty rep for American Simwood, and of course they got involved in a big class action, and so there was no more work there. The warranty work still needed to be done, but they were out of business. So I had to do something, and I ran into somebody that I was referred to somebody else who had a roofing company that had done some of this canvassing up in Oregon, I think, or Washington, and I didn't have anything else to do, so he sent me out and said he says he gets contracts signed that don't have that aren't a hard number contract. They're just getting people to sign up for contingency contract. And I thought, well, this sounds fantastic. So the first day I went out selling like that, I sold 3 roofs in the matter of, and I'm saying, this is the easiest thing ever. I can't believe I didn't always do this. And I went home and told my wife, and she's like, well,
I told you so, right?
Yeah, of course. So. And that's when I kind of got into the insurance, and that was in the early 2000s, I guess, is when I really started focusing on insurance work, and then eventually grew that from working for somebody else to again having my own roofing company, and I found myself more and more attracted to the insurance side of things, that's where my passion lies. You know, I'm not, as I said, I'm not the guy to run the whole, because I can sell with anybody, but I'm certainly not good at you know, enveloping and getting sales guys.
It ties into, well, I talk about this a lot, the whole strengths and weaknesses thing.
Yes.
I mean, know your strengths, figure out where your natural God-given abilities are. Try to tie that with something you actually can develop some passion for, and that's a recipe for success. And then you kind of started figuring this out. And then where was the kind of the turning point where you were like, man, insurance, I want to figure this game out, and I want to go all in.
Well, it's kind of when I guess it was developing when you and I actually met,
sure.
because what got you and I going was when, you know, our roofing association for Colorado was trying to get legislation passed that would have killed all our businesses. So this was really important to me, and so I started reaching out to my competitors, including you, and that's how we all came together to try to put a stop to that, which we were successful. And I think at that moment, some part of me realized this is because legislation and insurance and just that whole end of the industry, how it all ties together, because there's all kinds of laws around what you can do with insurance companies, what you can't do with insurance companies, and how that fits together, that those pieces come together to make it very successful. So I think I knew at that point, but I still had a business that I was trying to run that was an actual roofing business, and I was really good at the supplement part of the stuff. I was fantastic at that, trained lots of people that worked under me to do well at that, but I wasn't so good at making sure we had continuous sales. So when that had to come to an end, that's when I realized that this is probably the way I should go. I should really focus on this. This is what I'm really good at. I like doing this, and opportunities through people that I met like you and others. Yeah. I had somewhat of a reputation that I tried to live up to, and so you guys took risks with me and to see if I could make it fly, and I've just developed it from them. And I love what I do today. This is me. This is what I was built to do.
Awesome. So we're getting ready to get into the nuts and bolts of this. I know I teased you. We're going to teach you some supplementing. We're going to give you some great nuggets. But I definitely want to say hi, Janice. Janice sits around there saying hi to Kyle and I.
Hey,
what's up? How are you? You and Kelly say hi. Nick is on a plane right now. You might be wondering where Nick is. He's on a plane right now. He was out in the field working on a project, so he's on a plane. So I think he's probably the first live Start Build Grow Show viewer from 30,000 feet. What's up, man? Glad to see you. I think he's the one on responding from the show on Facebook. So great to see you. Thank you all for joining us. We're really excited. We're telling a story. I mean, Kyle and I have been connected almost a decade now, and early on, we just always have had some amazing dialogue, and we've always just bounced ideas off each other and kind of built these systems and processes that, lo and behold, actually work. And since then, we've been able to kind of completely scale our insurance model within our own organization, and here we are. Now we're going to get into it. We're going to share this information with you. So Kyle loves insurance. He learned it. He felt a passion for it. So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts. Walk us through just basic. I'm a roofer that has been doing it a little bit and has dabbled a little bit with insurance supplementing. But what advice would you give me to kind of help coach me through that whole process?
Well, I think the most important part is doing a self-analysis to see if that's what part of this business do you like. If it's supplementing is not for everybody because there's, I would say more people than not aren't built to supplement. They don't like, for whatever reason, they don't like the debate with the insurance companies, and it's a bunch of debate, and they just don't have it in them to do that. There's other things that they're more happy or more passionate about. Like, well, I was a terrible supplementer. I think you would suck at supplementing.
I did it. I've done it. I did it. When I was selling roofs, I had to supplement my own claims, and I was the whole kit and caboodle.
So that's the first thing. They got to decide if it's something they even want to tackle. If it's not something they want to tackle, then find somebody in your sphere that does want to tackle it, that likes doing that. That's who you should turn to handle that portion of it.
And there's a lot of companies in our industry that are outsourcing, that are building. There's companies coming up. There's a lot of people trying to build a good, solid model. And I think there are some people out there having some good success. We'll work on that. We'll get somebody on the show. I know a handful of guys out there that are doing some good things with supplementing. So there's some things in the works to try to be able to facilitate and help on a larger scale with this sort of problem or this sort of thing. But let's still kind of focus on, how do I get through now? Like, I got to get some supplements done. What do I got to do to get those in and make sure that I'm at least giving myself the best chance of success?
Well, it's a nuanced thing. I mean, it varies by insurer, by what's involved in the job. So it's hard to. I would say the most important thing that I try to remember every day when I'm going into this is insurers are like this, 700-pound gorilla, and you're not going to, more than likely, you're not going to be able to get them to do, well, they're 700 pounds, so they can do whatever the hell they want. So the easiest thing to do is to take the direction they're already going and then just try to direct that a little bit. So too many of these guys out there are fighting with the insurers on issues, trying to change how they look at it, change how things get done, change how they look at this, the whatever it might be, the supplement, the supplements. My theory is to take the model they've already got in place, take the Exactimate they're already using, take all the things that they consider when they're looking at writing this claim, and try to use the tools that they already have in place to your advantage. So you maybe do a deep dive into Exactimate to figure out how they're coming up with the numbers they are. Look at those numbers. Look at the numbers that Exactimate provides. You can find out exactly what the labor, exactly what the material, all those things are in there, and that's what they build it off. They build it off of what the cost of labor, what the cost of material is, and then they add some for profit. So if you know how to take those particular bits of information and then turn that back on them to your advantage, that's, I think, is the most effective way to do it. Because just trying to beat on them with, well, you should just pay for this because I said, or something that they don't accept. If you're trying to get them to buy off on some line item or some theory that they just don't accept, you're just never going to get there. You've got to figure out a way to take what they're giving you and then use it back on them, because they won't argue. It's much more difficult for them to argue if you've showed them how their own tools and their own systems provide this. And all I've done is I've expanded that to show why this is something you need to include in that. I think that's how I find the most success. And
what's probably an example? I mean, we want to give some nuggets to the viewers of this. Like, what's an example of something that you've seen that falls in these lines kind of more often than not?
Well, something I've been working on lately is just like I said, you can break Exactimate. You can get rid of all the profit in Exactimate if you know how to turn it off. So you can turn off all the profit. You can get an estimate that predicts that gives you exactly what your costs are supposed to be for that job, what Exactimate's providing for that job. So then when you're getting into these jobs where you've got multiple trades, and you're just hoping to get O&P, which O&P by itself is only a 16% gross margin, which is not going to, if you can survive on 16%, then well, you can't survive on that. So, but one of the things I've been working on is take that, because we want to show them why they need to pay more than just the O&P. So if you can show them how Exactimate's generally provides like a 35% gross margin, and then use your actual cost and shoot it back at them and say, hey, here's my cost. I just want to protect that 35% gross margin. So can we do that? Can we recalculate based on my real cost? So that's a prime example of what I'm talking about. Then we're taking the tools they already have. Exactimate is based on cost. So I'm taking those costs and I'm saying I just want the margin you pretty much already agreed to, Mr. Adjuster. You already said, you sent me an estimate that provided a 35% gross margin. I just want the same thing on my actual cost. Yeah, your costs were wrong. I just want that same margin. So that's a great example of I mean, that's a little more. That's deep. I mean, that's next level. That's really deep supplementing. But you want to get to a certain level where when you do these sort of things, it's just more a sense of being aware of it, and half the time too, they aren't necessarily aware that a specific line item is way underpriced. They have no idea.
They don't know that,
Yeah.
so you got to kind of do a deep dive to figure that out and get them to raise those prices.
And in that respect, you got to know your own stuff really well too. That's the other.
Know your numbers.
Yeah,
know your numbers.
Know your costs.
Mm-hmm.
Know why you're incurring those costs. Know how to put on a roof. That's know the details. That's
all the details.
If you can walk an adjuster through why you need $1,500 for access charges, for instance, where it's a roof that you can't load, you can't get the material there, and you can't, all the material has to go to the ground, and you have to take the thing. So if you can start to walk them through what that really entails, and I can because I've done it. So
you paint a picture.
Yeah, you paint a picture. Then once you can personalize it so they understand.
Yeah.
So that I oftentimes use, imagine what it would take you to move 5 tons of debris. How long is that going to take you? And so that's
Humanize it a little bit.
Definitely humanize.
Humanize.
When you put it in those terms, when they really said maybe they have to think about it at the very least. And I do that a lot. There's a lot of things that I'd like to get paid for where it's not necessarily I'm going to get paid for it this time, but it's repetitiveness. If you talk to the adjusters and you do it in a way that doesn't just they don't deploy you because you're just an asshole to them.
Yeah.
Can I say asshole?
Sure. We're live. I guess you could say. Hopefully, no one's kids are watching. Sorry, but nevertheless, the insurance carriers are like, what are they doing? I mean, how are they? What's the best way to kind of get them on board and or to kind of see it your way? And my mind, what I'm interpreting is like just present like solid factual things backed with data and photos and whatever else you can get to present your argument that this is the way it should be done, and this is what the price should be, in a way that doesn't offend them, dehumanize them, piss them off, yell at them. And I know there's a lot of people out there that just get in these verbal arguments, and that does nothing.
Yeah, you never get paid.
It does nothing. Then you never get paid.
That's true.
Even
I've evolved to the point where we'll do I should litigate stuff where I'm sure that I'm right and we need to do something to get paid more, and so we can we here in Colorado anyway, we've evolved to a place where the contractors can do that. Even then, I don't offend the insurers. I'm very nice to the adjuster I'm talking about, and I'll tell them, look, this is what I'm going to do, and we just come to terms that it's we agree to disagree. It's not adversarial. It's never adversarial with the insured. Well, okay, there is times when they're just jerks, but most of the time, even in that, I don't respond with that. I maybe become a little arrogant, but not a jerk.
Yeah.
As it were. So I think that's I think it's a big part of it. It's just another aspect of sales in a lot of respects.
Mm-hmm.
You have to sell them on what you're trying to get bought.
Yeah, good. Keep going. I'm just gonna come and say hi to some people here. We got a lot more people jumped on. Josh, what's up, man? Looking forward to getting you on the show. A lot of people. We got Job Nimbus, another one of our sponsors. So we definitely want to give a shout out to Ronnie and Ben and the guys from Job Nimbus, because we are promoting the Job Nimbus Solutions Summit. It's coming up in August, or actually in October. What am I thinking? August? I got another one in August. It's coming in October, the 21st and 22nd, and it's going to be awesome. It's in Austin, Texas. I don't know if there's been another roofing conference in Austin. There's a brand new facility that just got built, and we're excited about it. And we're limited. We're not going to go big. We're not trying to have one of those huge, overwhelming conferences. We want to keep it boutique to where we can really spend some time with our clientele and really help roofers all over the country. So I believe it's already up. So if you're still watching, Ronnie, go ahead and throw throw some links on there just for people to get on the list and or to sign up for the conference we have coming up. So we'll dive back into it. If anybody has questions, I do want to leave a few minutes at the end if you want to ask Kyle some questions. So we'll go ahead and dive back into it and kind of maybe talk about a few more technical things that he may be able to kind of help us with here. Like what we're talking about. We're talking about like making sure to present and articulate things in a certain way. I think that's half the battle. Right?
It's definitely half the battle, and you touched on the other side of it. You've got to provide documentation for whatever it is you're trying to get. I mean, it seems simple, but I've got a folder, a Dropbox folder at this point of code pages and manufacturers' specifications and instructions and letters that I've wrote, emails exchanges between building officials that we tap into every single day. So that's the other part of it. If you can I'm asking you to pay for something. Well, this drip edge. Drip edge is simple, right? But I'm asking you to pay for it. I've got to show why you have to pay for it. Why do you have to? Why is it code required? Why is it code required in this municipality? And a lot of it's just walking them through it to the point where it seems silly, but oftentimes we're having to provide insurance adjusters with the fact that this municipality adopted the IRC. It seems like that should be a no-brainer, but it's not. Oftentimes they tell us, hey, we don't accept IRC because that doesn't necessarily mean the municipality has accepted that. So that kind of documentation, overkill in the documentation, it's better to send. My wife is a prime example. When she sends a file, she sends like 30 pages of stuff. So over documentation isn't going to hurt you. Pictures.
How many of those are photos?
Well, a good portion
it could be almost all sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes, and that's the other part of it. Photos again, showing what you're trying to get paid for and why. If you can walk them through a photo and show them why you need this special, this whatever it might be, something on the roof that's uncommon that you want to get paid for. If you can show them a photo and then walk them through that photo why it's needed. Oftentimes, if they don't figure out directly how to pay, because sometimes there's not a line item for whatever it is you're asking for. Maybe they'll figure something else out to get it in there. That's so those are. Besides having a good attitude about it, don't think that this is an adversarial relationship and being passionate about it. If you can document, the better you can document what you're asking for, the better you can throw up something that makes them want to pay, because that's what it becomes. You have to get that adjuster to want to pay, because maybe their supervisor's saying that we don't pay for this stuff. But if you can give him a good enough story and a landscape why he should pay, he'll go above you and see if he can get it paid. I just did this with.
All right. There's some good news coming. There's some good news.
With
got some big settlements.
Well, no. This is a particular issue. So we had a one of your salespeople. They had a detach and reset. We had to detach and reset the gutters to put the drip edge on correctly. Well, in this particular case, the insurer had paid for new gutters on the last claim. The insurer did not, and the homeowner didn't actually do the work. So he left old gutters. So when we actually detach and reset the gutters, the insurer said, "Well, we already paid for new gutters. We're not going to pay to detach and reset them this time." And I kind of understood what he was saying, but then after I thought about it for a couple of days, sent him some more emails, and we got together again and talked about it. And we walked ourselves through it, and it came. He ended up paying for it. But that's a lot of. Again, I didn't just get mad at him about it. We walked through why he should have to pay, because the drip edge has nothing to do with the gutters. It didn't matter if the gutters were replaced or not before, because we would have to detach and reset them just to put the drip edge on properly this time. So whether they paid for the gutters or not last time was irrelevant, because we weren't asking them to pay for gutters, we were asking for drip edge. And the drip edge, the gutters had to come off to do that. But that's an example of how you walk him through that, show him there was more than just the drip edge itself. It was also coverages that he was considering, but he went and talked to his supervisors and got back to me and said, okay, we're going to go ahead and do this. And that's what you'll find a lot of times. If you're well prepared and you've thought about things so that in your own mind you know why you're asking for it. You can't just ask because your buddy down the street, your other Joe Roofer, said he gets paid for this. He doesn't know, he gets paid for this sometimes. Why aren't you getting paid for it? That's not a legitimate reason to get paid for it. You have to show them why they have to pay for it. So a blind squirrel, finds nuts, as the saying goes. So
here's a little tidbit. I'm going to give you guys some really good tidbit you can take with you, and something that we struggle with, and it's merely just because of effort. You could add an average of $200 to $300 per claim if you have someone take a handful of photos while the roof is being done. Correct?
At least.
At least. What's the number?
Well, I think good photos.
Because we get here, this is what I'm asking. We get before pictures, we get after pictures, we struggle with the during pictures, and the during pictures can really, imagine adding $200-300 per claim or more just because you take the time to take pictures of step flashing and drip edge and decking and underlayments, and if it already has ice and water already on it, deck and that sort of thing, right?
Sure. Well, step flashing by itself is typically, there's 30 feet of step flashing on a house. So it's $400-500 by itself on a house. So but you'll rarely get it paid for these days unless you have pictures of your guys tearing it off and it getting screwed up, because insurers say it's not directly damaged by hail. Well, it's not, but it's obviously part of the job. So we're doing it every time. We might as well get paid for it. So those kind of pictures, those are easy stuff. Without pictures, there's so many things you can't even begin to ask for that you're missing out. I mean, I would say pictures, 300 or 400 isn't picture. If you've got good pictures, for me personally, if you've got great pictures from production, it's going to be well over $1,000, because I'll find stuff in those pictures that I can use that are outside the box. That maybe something that's not in Xactimate, but because of my experiences, because of my roofing experience, I can look at that and say, hey,
access things like kickouts, little weird nuances
or something that's completely outside the norm. That's
what's probably one of the most random outside the norm things that you've got bought recently. What's up, Adrian, Cody, everybody? What's up, everyone?
Well, I mean that example I gave about just going that way at it with the drip edge and the
getting those gutters, right?
Getting that paid for was because they really did get them paid for before, so that was kind of outside the box. There's lots of things I'm working on that are really, really deep dives. Doing that stuff I told you earlier about using your costs. Your costs are your friend. As contractors, I run into so many contractors that this is hide the cost thing. Well, that's counterproductive to what we're trying to do, because their software and everything the insurance side knows is based on cost. So if we're trying to hide the cost, it also looks like we've got something to hide. I've got nothing to hide. I would always give my cost.
I'll give that as an entrepreneur, right? I'm an entrepreneur coach, right? It's an old adage, like, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you can't grow a business by cutting costs.
No.
You don't grow a business by cutting costs. You grow a business by investing in your business and investing in people, actually by increasing your costs. But ideally, you want to be able to increase your overall revenue at a greater rate than you increase your costs. But you need to increase both. And eventually it goes kind of like this, right? That's the idea behind it. So it's okay. It's okay to pay value, pay people what they're worth, and hold the insurance companies accountable to pay for that.
Absolutely.
We're contractors. We deserve to have a profitable enough margin to run a successful business, to hire people to be out in the field, to hire quality control, to have all these things in place that it really takes to operate at a high level and keep quality up. But the insurance companies are holding us hostage.
Amen, brother.
You know what I mean? They're like holding us back, and we're not willing to fight and or invest in the people and incur those costs because we're too scared of the bottom line. But when you think about it, if you do it the right way, he's proving it out every day. He's proving it out that transparency wins.
And if you're confident and secure in your costs, then again, there's nothing to hide from there. And I don't have a couple weeks back, another example, one of my cost plus things that I've been working on. So I looked up, every insurer is a publicly traded company for the most part. So you can look at their financials, and you can see what their gross profit is for their claims costs, right? Before administration costs, for everything else. And I looked up a couple of them, and because I was telling the adjuster, look, I need to get to a 40% margin on this, and I pointed out to him that the company he worked for was running on a 40% margin, and so just
that's deep. There you go. Figure out the insurance company's margins and throw that at them. That's a good one.
Absolutely, that's the kind of thing. That's why costs should never be something we're embarrassed by at all, or that we need to run away from. Mm-hmm. Whatever our costs are, and as long as your costs are legitimate, you're not overpaying. You're not paying the roofers $150 a square just because you like them. You're paying them a fair wage. Then you should have no reason not to show costs, and then talk about how the costs are related to the insurance estimate itself.
Makes total sense.
It does to me too.
Well, we got a couple questions here, so that's great. What's up, Adrian? Licio, what's up, buddy? Thanks, man. I'm going to talk about that in a sec here, just a sec. But Bernie had a good question. What's, any luck with rotten decking? How does that work? What's any luck there?
Bernie's my friend. So rotten decking is something that I've been working on for going on 10 years, and in fact I out of decking issues I've gone all the way to the Colorado Supreme Court with insurance companies. So in my opinion, and you can document and back this up with code documents and description of what a roof is. The roof includes the felt, the flashing, the nails, the pipe flashings, and the deck itself. That in every definition of a roof includes the deck. So when you run into a rotten decking situation, my take on it is it's insurers will try to tell you, well, it's wear and tear, it's rot, so on and so forth. I say I don't care what caused it, because it wasn't. We're not turning a claim for sheeting. We turn in a claim for a roof that was damaged by hail, and because that decking is as much a part of that roof, this whole roof assembly, as the felt, the nails, the shingles, so on and so forth. It's just as important. In fact, it's more important than some of that, because you can't have a roof without decking. The roofing's there to protect the decking from getting ruined, and the decking's there to support the roofing. They can't exist. One without the other doesn't really exist. It's like trying to put ink without, separate the ink from the paper. You can't do it. So you can. There's
your selling tip right there. You can't separate the ink from the paper. That's what you got to tell the adjuster, right?
I've said that in hundreds.
How many times do you have this conversation on a weekly? Conversations like this.
Well,
daily.
Daily we'll have this kind of conversations with insurance adjusters, and this is the kind of stuff that I throw at them. And again, it doesn't. I've been working on decking for going on 10 years. When I first started messing with decking, 15 years, I guess. When I first started working with decking, they weren't buying it ever. Even the plank decking that everybody's getting paid for now, nobody was paying for that. They thought I was crazy. But over time, I did it. I shared it with others how to get it paid for. They expanded from there, and now it's not most anybody can get decking paid over plank decking. So these conversations, by continuously having them, you're not going to have success. Like on what he's talking about, you're going to have a real struggle with insurance companies. Soft decking itself, or rotted decking, is a really hard one to get bought. My take on it is, if it's just around the eaves or so on and so forth, it's 4 or 5 sheets. It's probably not worth messing with, because you're probably not going to get it paid for no matter what you do. But if you run into it where the whole roof is that way, then make sure you replace all the sheeting. Because if you're saying a portion of it needs to be replaced and a portion of it doesn't need to be replaced, then you're kind of admitting that it's wear and tear. It has nothing to do with the roof itself. There's parts of it that are wore out. The other parts are still good. So why do we have to pay for this? So that's kind of my take on that. This is an evolving situation though with sheeting. I think we're going to see over the next several years. There's reports out there about how many nails in Colorado. We've got houses that have been roofed 5 times in the last 7 years. Well, quite a few like that. So there is a point when that, no matter what the sheeting is, it's just got too many roofs that have been put on.
Yeah, that's next. That's what's coming down the pipe now.
I think it's coming. But this is again, for insurers paying for sheeting. It's a big expense. So it's something that they're gonna push back on. Yeah, they're always gonna push back on. I've had a lot of success with sheeting, and we'll continue to have success with it. And I'm on the leading edge of those fights we're talking about. I'm gonna, if I have my way, 3 or 4 years down the road, that'll just be an accepted part of the roof estimate to begin with. They'll consider sheeting. We're going to pay for sheeting if it's required. If you tear it off and you don't need it, okay, fine. But it's not even going to be an argument. It's going to be like a paid when incurred or if incurred type situation, because it is a part of the roof. It is.
And then you have to go back to what we talked about before. You got to prove it. You got to document the sheeting actually being replaced.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Let's see. We got any other questions? We got Josh on here. What about this and other forms of construction like restoration? Yeah, I mean, I think the same types of strategies can and are used on a daily basis when it comes to restoration.
Well, I would say that just construction in general, or retail work even. One of the basic principles I follow with the insurance companies and any contractor I might work with is ethics. So, and that stands true for no matter what you're doing. If you're just dealing with a homeowner, so on and so forth. If you're ethical and trying to do the right thing, even when it hurts, if you're trying to do the right thing, because God knows, every once in a while we get estimates from insurers where they've screwed up and they've maybe outdone it by $10,000. Or there's things on there that we really didn't have to do or not going to do. And so, if you can bring yourself to give that back, it goes. It will get returned to you 10 times. Right? Absolutely. So, and not to mention when you do get in those fights with the got an insurer that's just being tough. If you know that you don't have some history of trying to cheat them, then you're going to be a much more effective. If you truly believe that you're in the right and what you're doing is right, then you're probably going to win. As opposed to if it's just about trying to trump up the claim for more money, then there's a cap on it.
That's a perfect segue to kind of to wrap this thing, because at the end of the day, what it all comes down to is integrity and honesty and doing the right thing. Supplementing is a game of cat and mouse. It's a negotiation. He's half politician, half supplementer sometimes. But at the end of the day, if you just consistently do the right thing for the right reasons, you will have success.
Big
picture.
Example, yes.
It goes without saying. So if you may be tempted to try to supplement for something that, I've heard somebody got paid for this, or I'm going to try to get paid for it. If you're not actually doing it, come on, guys, don't supplement it. Do it the right way. Let's make sure to do these the right way. We got a good question. We got Jeff coming in here. All right, should we go there?
Well, I can't read the question.
It's the RFG DMO. Should we go there? We're going to give you 5 minutes.
Jeff.
Because this topic is so troublesome and convoluted. It's a major challenge that we don't want to come to you with a ton of hey, do this or do this, because it's still subjective. It's still subjective, and we don't know exactly, all the nuances.
It's another evolving issue that's going to get addressed, I'm sure. But the RFG versus demo switch. So you're asking the insurers to on average, they're going to come up $1,500 on a house just for that switch alone. So if you multiply that out times whatever houses get done, let's call it 1 million houses in a year. I don't know how many get done across the country, but the number is gigantic, and the insurers are not going to they're not just going to roll over on this issue. That the fact that Xactimate puts it in there as DMO as the default setting, part of that's based on the fact that if you go and look at what your costs truly are,
dissect the actual costs,
what your costs are compared to what Xactimate's giving you for your actual cost, what you're going to find out is that the DMO number is just about right. It's not really off. So there's a whole bunch of contractors and PAs and the industry in general is really focused on this, or trying to make hay on this RFG versus DMO. For me, it goes back to, again, if Xactimate is wrong in my costs, if I'm paying a hell of a lot more for my labor than Xactimate's providing, then I can see the switch. But the truth is, you and most other contractors are hiring these subs, and they're doing it under the DMO, that they're making it fit. So until
you
that
almost have
becomes
to make the adjustment to actually pay more out in labor,
that's
to
one
justify
option. That's certainly one
the
option.
change.
I know that there's PAs out there that are, it kind of varies. So a PA has to look at they have to provide estimates that are set up for whomever might get the job, not based on because it could be a contractor that has employees that's all employee labor, and so they've incurring all these additional costs that maybe those that are having subs aren't incurring. So he has to provide an estimate for whatever they might have to incur. So that's where it comes from. The PAs would really like to push this, because if you're a PA, your pay is based on the gross amount of claims. So if you can add $1,500 on that alone, that's 10% in your pocket. That's $750. You're going to do that. So, but that's an example of they don't really have, in my opinion, they don't have a justification for why they're doing it. Not really. I mean, other than the fact that they have to provide estimates for whoever might, their job is to give you an estimate for whomever you might hire. But trying to push contractors to do it, I think is maybe a bit far afield. I'm working on some things to potentially get this so it becomes kind of a standard, but there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that would have to get done first, and so
we'll leave it at that. There you go.
Stay
There's your
tuned.
5 minutes. Stay
Yeah.
tuned, because we talked about this for like an hour today. So we got some strategies in place, but I'm not gonna go live and tell you guys exactly kind of what we're doing, because we're doing a deep dive. We're dissecting the numbers and figuring out and doing an analysis to figure out exactly, who's right, who's wrong, and where the compromise is going to be, and what sort of paradigm shifts or industry shifts need to happen to merge and make this issue kind of go away, I guess, or be solved one way or another.
Well, I mean, it's $80 more a square, so it's out there. That carrot's sitting there, and I don't blame anybody for wanting it. It's just, again, like everything that I've said here tonight, you have to be able to have a reason. You have to be able to use the tools that you're provided and how they're meant to be used. So the insurers use Xactimate. This is in there, but then you've got to show them why the switch is something you have to have. Yeah. And I think at this point, 99% of the contractors out there do not have they couldn't justify why they need another $80 a square. They're just not. Yeah. Other than they just want
so therefore it
more
just
money
becomes a crapshoot, right? You're just throwing it against the wall, and maybe a couple one out of 10.
It's going to stick. Sometimes it's going to stick. You hear about guys that are getting it, and they will. I've gotten it before on some claims for like USA a couple times. So it happens, but it's just one of those where it is really just true. Because mostly the insurers are getting hit by all these contractors for it, so they're becoming very aware of it as well. So they're figuring out how to defend against it for sure, and that's the way it is with it's a circular transaction.
It's a game of chess.
Well, it is kind of a game of chess, but they figure
we're
out
making moves, they're making moves.
Yes,
We're making moves, they're making
absolutely.
moves. Okay, we got one more good question here. So there you go. Hopefully that was a little insight on the DMO RFG thing. It's not solved yet. I don't see why people are trying to like sell a way to do this or tell people a certain way, like when this is still up in the air. It's still subjective, right? So let's get some more data. Let's table that for more data. Max had a great question. This is a great one to end on. What are the common missing items on roofs? What are, let's say, the top 5 most common things you see missed on an insurance scope?
Well, step flashing raises right to the top. So
step flashing is one.
Top 5.
Drip?
Well, yeah, but drip is
subjective to the area.
Again, the drip edge. That's a hard question to answer because there's so many variables that go into that. What kind of a situation are we in? Are we in a storm environment where you got CAT adjusters who don't have any leverage to buy anything? They're not going to pay for any code upgrades at all. Not up front.
Oh, there it is. It comes to the code upgrades.
That
depends on the code.
I think that's an all-encompassing thing. Code upgrades certainly cover almost everything they're not putting on there. It would be very difficult for me to put a top 5 together.
So let's give them a little something. So O&P, that's always missed, and that should be on every single claim. Yeah. We deserve to make a profit. I already went on my rant there. Sure. So drip edge or step flashing, O&P. What about like bad access and those sort of things and extra?
That varies by job. So no insurer
they still don't include it very often.
No, they very rarely.
It's still a
put
missed
that kind of
item,
stuff.
right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. They don't put it on.
So bad access is another one.
What's a gable? Here's a good one for anybody who's not doing it. And they don't put it on. It's gable cornice strips, and so when you've got a little return in a gable, there's a thing in Xactimate for that. You can put that in there. They never put that.
Those little returns, guys. The little returns you get under the bird boxes sometimes. Little cornice returns. There's a line item in Xactimate for that, and it's pretty much never on a claims.
So
what about kick out diverters? Is that something?
No, I never see that either. Kick out diverters, and that's an Xactimate, and it's a pretty easy thing to get bought. Again, you got to have pictures showing it either existed or you put it on. I was trying. There's one that I don't remember.
Step or not like counter. I mean, how often?
No, there was something just recently that I because I hear a lot from insurance adjusters they've never even heard of it, but they'll pay for it every time.
I thought it was those cornice things. I remember seeing an email about that.
Something else.
No, it's something else.
Something else.
We'll get back to you.
I can't remember what it was though. But
Like
to
bird
answer your
boxes?
question, there's so many variables from insurance. There's no way to put a top 5 on it. It's step flashing every time, but it could be. It depends on where you're at, geography, who the adjusters are, and who the insurance company is.
So do a little homework, research your local codes. Make sure you really understand what your local codes are. And a lot of times these local codes are kind of vague and they just defer back to a code book or they defer back to manufacturer specifications. In those cases, that plays into your advantage. So, I mean, know your codes, do some research, or whoever you're working with to do these sort of things, you want to do that research as well.
Well, can I add something there?
Sure.
So on that note, all your manufacturing instructions are code because every code says that you've got to follow the manufacturing instructions. So anything that's in the manufacturer's instructions, you can justify as code because you can show that you can access where it says in the code, you've got to follow the manufacturer's instructions. Send them that along with the manufacturer's instruction when you're trying to get something paid for, like double laminate starter on shake-look shingles, for instance.
Yeah.
That's a manufacturer's requirement, thus it becomes code. I always get that paid for. It adds a whole bunch of money to the job.
Yeah.
So
we love the presidential TLs. You guys know about those presidential TLs. Those are good jobs.
And then the other thing is on that subject, code officials don't really know what the code says either. I mean, quite frankly, make it your job to understand the code better than anybody because that is one of your greatest tools you can use. So if you have a real understanding of what code requires, then you can frame questions when you're sending to code officials in a manner that makes it simple for them to answer, yes or no questions, that kind of stuff. But that's how you get stuff paid for. Because if you wait for the adjuster to call the code official more often than not, it's not going to give them the answer that you're looking for.
And that's how you collect the information that you need, right? So over time, as you come across these obstacles, when you're having dialogue, try to get any sort of dialogue with your local building department or your local code official to get any sort of clarification on one thing or another. Get that in writing. How much easier is it to supplement a claim when you have a letter or something stating exactly what the code is, backed by the manufacturer, backed by the IRC, highlighted? How hard is it to get?
Well, it's hard because you have to be willing to dive into the code and
you got to do it for
yourself. Yeah. And to this day, I mean, though I probably know a good portion of the roofing code by heart, it amazes me that I'll still find something. I'll be working on some issue, and I'll find something in the roofing code that I hadn't really thought of applying in a certain way before, and it works. So I would definitely advise you to know your codes wherever you're at. Just dead nuts, so you know it all.
Yeah. Okay, and as we wrap this, thanks guys. This has been an awesome show, but we don't have manufacturer sponsors yet. Hint, hint, whoever's watching. Check with your local manufacturer, or not local, but check with the manufacturer that you're working with. Call your rep, do a deep dive. You can actually really get those manufacturer specs, and those will really help you when you're trying to create the content that you need to deliver when you're trying to argue a claim. So do that, do some homework there, do some legwork with your local jurisdictions, and you're going to find some more success on your insurance supplementing. Now, couple little things I got the platform. Man, you've been a part of this journey, right? You've been a part of the elite journey, and we hit an absolute milestone this year. Today it came out. We made one of the fastest growing companies in the country. Like, not contractors, not roofers. Out of every single company that was on this, that they tracked in this program, we made less than 4,000. Like, that's pretty cool.
Amazing.
Man.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of got to pinch me on that. You've been a huge part of that. You've helped us do,
well, that's like you said.
It's been cool.
You find your roles. You find the people that you were smart enough to hire me. So
yeah, I was smart enough to find guys that are smarter than me. If you from some of you younger, like myself, like trying to build a roofing company, you don't have time to go spend 20 years on the roof. You got to find a resident roofing expert. Hire that guy, make sure you pay him well, make sure he's full of integrity, and he's the right guy for the situation, and then you build something great together. We're case in point. It's been awesome having you, and I do want to give a little shout out and a thanks to, obviously, the Start Build Grow Show. Make sure if you're watching this to like the show, go to the show, like our page, get updates and that sort of thing. You can also check out the Roofing Academy, roofingacademy.com. You can go on there and check out our online program. I have a personal coaching mentorship program where I can actually help you build and grow your company at a rate that is astronomically different and lower than my competitors, because I really want to help the industry. And lastly, Suma Media. Thank you, Suma Media, for helping us produce and doing all the work in the background. They're kicking butt. Nick Perrette, my other co-host, if he's still on manning he's on an airplane right now, so hopefully he's there. James, to all the Roofing Academy clients and all the people I get the pleasure of working with and helping see their growth and work with them every day. Thank you so much for your support. We're out. Have a great, blessed day.